Have you ever heard of Van-Pires? No? I'm not that surprised. I hadn't heard about it either until someone brought it to my attention. Van-Pires is a 13-episode television show that aired on Fox and WB Kids in the late 1990s. It relied heavily on CGI, and it was made to compete with the Power Rangers and the big bad Beetleborgs. I was too young to have seen it when it was airing to remember it. So what exactly is Van-Pires? Well, it's kind of complicated. I'm gonna do my best to describe this show like I'm telling a friend about it, like I'm trying to convince one of my pals to also check this show out. All right, let's go. Van-Pires is a show about a bunch of kids who all hang out at a junkyard, they all work on their project cars, and all of a sudden a meteorite strikes Earth and it transforms those kids into the car that they were working on. They don't turn into the car, they turn into like an anthropomorphic version of that car that they're working on. At the same time that happens, a bunch of cars that don't have kids inside of them are also turned in to vampires, but they're bad guy vampires. They suck gas out of innocent cars, whereas the motivators, which is the good guy group of cars, don't have to suck gas out of innocent cars in order to survive. And these two groups, the motivators and the vampires, end up battling it out throughout the course of the television show, and that's where the main conflict from the show comes in. That was probably really confusing and convoluted, right? I think as an idea, Van-Pires is a little sloppy, but I think the execution of the show isn't all that bad. It did take me about a minute to try to describe the plot, and that makes talking about it a little complicated. There is so much going on in Van-Pires that even the intro to the show has a hard time describing it.
When a mysterious meteor crashes into a lonely junkyard, derelict vans and cars take on human-like life. The Van-Pires suck the gas from innocent cars to feed their need for speed and drain the planet of all its fuel. Only 4 teenagers, transformed by the meteor, stand between the Van-Pires and a world sucked dry and running on empty. Part team, part car, all hero. The motivators must fight the night to save the day. So check your fear and get in gear. The Van-Pires.
I love that they have like a little V hand symbol calling card thing that they do. It's very cute.
Fires are here.
The introductions introduce the main characters just by name, but I want to take a minute to talk about them and the villains for just a little bit. There's Snap, Rev, Nuke, and Axel. These are the 4 teenagers who make up the Motivators. Unfortunately, most of these teens are really one-dimensional in their character, except for Rev, who is definitely the most interesting of the bunch. She's really likable in the episodes where she's the main focus. She has a positive attitude and reacts realistically to situations she finds herself in.
Girl, you better come up for air and let the boys under the hood take care of this one. You know?
I don't need any backseat drivers telling me what to do, all right? So get wrenched, guys.
Ooh.
Step off.
Gangway.
Oh. Hey, Rev, I like your new makeup. What do you call it? Sniper by Revlon? At least we can't see your zits.
No, but I can still see your nose.
I know, you're screwing up that fuel line. Rev, look on my nose.
They all intern at a junkyard, which is where most of the live action segments take place. Each character has a designated CARFIN, which is the car they were inside of when the meteor hit. This determines what they look like whenever they mission ignition, which is just a fancy way of saying they transform.
Yeah! You weren't kidding when you said that's the key. Come on, guys. I don't want to be the designated driver. We are all in this together. Mission ignition!
Axel is a sports car, Snap is a van, Nuke is a tow truck, and Rev is a fire truck. The vampire villains are all pretty silly looking, but ultimately I like their designs. TRACULA, with a T, is the main bad guy. His sidekicks are Cadaver, who is like the Igor character, Ambula, the ambulance, who is supposed to look like the Bride of Frankenstein, and then AUTOMANIAC, who is a clown that is also an ice cream truck. And I feel like I have to mention, he looks a lot like Sweet Tooth from the Twisted Metal series, which is weird because this show came out 2 years after the first Twisted Metal game debuted in 1995. TRACULA does end up having a son in the episode A Car is Born, and his name is Alucard. You know, like Tracula backwards. These vampires are different from the motivators. They are just cars that came to life with no humans involved at all. The only way they can live is to suck gas from innocent cars. You might have noticed that I left a person from the intro out. Van Helsing. It says he's playing himself. Interesting. I searched online and I couldn't come up with anything about him. Nobody knows who he is. It seems like his identity is a complete mystery. Why is his last name a contraction and a verb? Who the heel is Van Helsing? His name is Van Helsing, not Helsing. Like Van Helsing. And I'm not kidding, that's the in-universe explanation for his name.
Listen. Oh, yeah, that song reminds me of how I got my name. Did I ever tell you kids how I got my name?
Yeah, you were a roadie with the Stones. When Mick came down with laryngitis, they threatened to pull the gig and cancel the tour. Then the band looked at you and said,
He'll sing, yeah. Van! He'll sing.
He's getting fired up.
Yeah, I know, I slayed him that night, yeah.
He's a stereotypical hippie with a Liverpool accent, and he actually owns and runs the Junkyard. He's kind of like the Flabber from Beetleborgs or the Zordon from Power Rangers. He's the team mascot that runs the home base. I mentioned before that Van-Pires live-action segments primarily take place in the Junkyard. There is actually a lot of computer-generated imagery in this show, and that's where all the other locations come in. There is this awesome meteorite-induced city underground. It's really cool, and it actually reminds me of something out of Final Fantasy X. There is also a factory that the Van-Pires live in, and it's apparently really close to a cemetery, which is kind of weird. I do enjoy all these different spots, but I will admit that when you see the CGI Junkyard transition into the real Junkyard, it is a little jarring. One thing I feel like I should mention is the music. Portions of the soundtrack were composed by John Entwistle, the bassist for the band The Who. Now, I'm not really a Who head. Their music isn't really for me, but I will admit the songs that are in Van-Pires are actually pretty good. It's all mostly in the background, but there are 1 or 2 tracks that have vocals, and those songs are pretty well made.
I'm tired, just kicking my heels at home, waiting for the phone to ring.
Look, I got a letter. Let's open it up.
Dear Puglini, what is the best episode of Van-Pires? Yours truly, Puglini.
That was really nice. Obviously, it's the Frankenstein episode. The character Nuke, who is one of the motivators, ends up becoming addicted to energy sodas that have bad gasoline injected into them or something, I guess. This causes him to become Nukenstein, a monstrous version of himself that attacks his friends. In reality, the only thing that changes about him is his attitude, as well as he grows spikes and changes color a little bit. So of course, nobody recognizes him, until Van is able to point it out later and saves the day.
There's a new vampire in town and he's tearing the place apart. Oh, no.
There's a new vampire in town and he's tearing the place apart.
Yo, vampires! The name's Numero! Not only did you fail the taste test, your brand gave me a case of bad gas. me, I think it fits you better.
Imagine just like showing that section to someone without telling them what it was. Would they understand it like we do? Nukenstein isn't the only episode of Van-Pires to feature a Frankenstein in it either. The literal next episode is the aforementioned A Car is Born, which is where TRACULA has a son called Alucard. He has the face of a real bat turned into a car part, but he is constructed and made like a Frankenstein would be. It's just weird to me that there are 2 Frankenstein episodes of this show in a row. Most of the episodes follow the same basic plot. The vampires are up to no good, and it's up to the motivators to try to stop them. I actually don't want to spoil too many of these episodes because I really do think Van-Pires is worth checking out, so I highly encourage you to go find an episode or 2 and maybe give them a watch in your free time. Van-Pires the show is an absolute mess, but being a mess isn't necessarily a bad thing. If you've seen some of the other videos on my channel, you'll know that I have a fondness for these early animated CGI monstrosities. There's just something inherently charming about them to me. I'm glad shows like Van-Pires get to exist, even if they are kind of weird and silly and confusing. I do highly doubt that we'll ever see anything from Van-Pires again, and honestly, that's totally okay. Some things are best left forgotten, but fondly remembered by those who love it. Thanks for watching. Make sure you suck the gas for my innocent subscribe button and like it if you enjoyed the video. See you again soon.